Voting in progress.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 1 p.m. Please note the meeting is video and audio recorded, and all electronic meetings are uploaded to the municipality's YouTube page. By registering to participate in the meeting by electronic means, you are consenting to have your likeness and comments recorded and posted on YouTube. I will now read the township's recognition statement. The township is currently developing a formal land acknowledgement statement. We recognize that when the first Euro-Canadian settlers arrived in what is now Portlange Township, the Anishinaabe ancestors of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation had long established hunt camps in the area. Through written and verbal accounts, we understand that the Anishinaabe interacted with the settlers in a friendly and cooperative manner. It is acknowledged that the development of the township encroached upon the traditional way of life, resulting in their displacement. I will now do a roll call of those in attendance, starting on my left and moving to my right. Christine.
Yeah.
Lily. Andy.
Yeah.
Haslin.
Hampton.
Hampton.
Okay, but now you'll remember. Here.
My apologies.
Common.
I would also like to let the committee know that Josh Heller is no longer a member of the committee and has been removed from our distribution. Now move to our moment of reflection. Please pause for a moment of reflection. Okay, thank you. We now move to the confirmation of the agenda. Are there any amendments to the agenda that anybody would like to flag? Okay, then, I'll ask Laura to read the resolution.
Yeah, that the Heritage Advisory Committee approves the March 4th, 2024 agenda as circulated.
Need the hunters. Carried. Now we'll move to our disclosure of any conflicts of interest. Do any committee members have a conflict of interest based on the agenda presented today?
I'm just looking at the agenda and looking at the intention to designate status. I haven't checked through all of those addresses. Like page 2 of 5. And I was just wanting to be able to learn for any churches. So I declared I didn't see that like any of those churches, but I didn't see them. Oh, almost 7156. That's the only one. Is that you know,
56. Let me pull it up. But yeah, 7156. Were there any churches for this year's? Especially. It is a church, yes. 7156.
Is that not?
Yes.
Yeah, so I don't
Okay. We'll have you declare the conflict of interest. I'll hand you the form again. The same thing. It'll be 8.1 and then the title. And then if you just could do a description and then make sure you sign it there at the bottom. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Is there anything that I'm just gonna set aside in my book?
Yeah, just so you have a conflict of interest because of that property, and I think we're good.
In the, I know already. That's it.
Okay. Mhm.
Okay, so Christine's on record for the conflict of interest with the property noted. Does anybody else have any conflicts that they wish to share? Okay. Do we need a
Okay.
motion?
No.
Good, okay. I don't believe we have any delegations for this meeting, is that correct? Okay, so now we'll move to our consent agenda. So the first one is the January 14th, 2024 Heritage Advisory Committee minutes.
Yep.
I think that was the only one. Right?
That's
Okay.
all. That the consent agenda item 7.1 listed for the January 4th, 2024 Heritage Advisory Committee be received for information.
We have a mover. Andy, seconder. Any dissenting? Okay, carried. Now move to the committee report portion of our agenda. The first one being item 8.1, the Heritage Report 2024-008, the Heritage Designation Update for 2023 and 2024 properties. And we'll turn it over to Lauren to provide us with a brief overview of the report.
So the purpose of this report is to provide the committee with an update on both the 2023 and 2024 properties. I'll kind of go through both so we can hear it verbally. For the 2023 batch, the notice of intention to designate for the properties did happen at the November 29th council meeting. Staff then sent out those notices to the property owners on December 14th, and any objections had to be received in writing to the municipal clerk by February 9th. And then a report on any of the objections, as well as the designation bylaws, will be going to the March 20th council meeting for their consideration. So we'll kind of be able to provide the committee with more information on that batch at the next Heritage Committee meeting in May. And then kind of looking at those 2024 properties, council did endorse those 19 properties at the December 13th council meeting. And in the report, I've kind of highlighted the action plan that has been previously endorsed by council. And it kind of goes over staff's role, the committee's role for each step on the action plan, kind of an update on where we're at with each item, and then a date of when each item will be completed by. And I can answer any questions you guys have regarding that report.
Any questions from committee members? I have a couple. Very just maybe more clarifying points if you can. So the first one, if I jump to the action item, which is page 4 of the ATR 2024 report, the first one would be the due date of April 1, which is the second bullet here, that the subcommittees contact the Historical Society and Wellington County Archives for additional information. My ask would be as if township staff could share some contact information for those entities just to expedite the process.
Absolutely.
And the second one would be just to go over the subcommittee's role and responsibilities in reviewing the draft statements. And I think specifically what I'm looking for is, you know, the expectations of township staff of the subcommittee members to provide what goes into the review. Type of thing. So if you can just articulate that a bit more, and really my goal here is to make sure that the committee members have a high degree of clarity of what the expectations are.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. I think what we learned through last batch is we want to get those statements as accurate as possible. And in order for that, it will require the committee to kind of do some external research on kind of like digging into what that statement may be. The statements were completed last year by one of the Heritage Summer students, but they might not be 100% correct. We want to make them as accurate as possible. So they might any sort of further research you might want to do may be required.
Any questions from committee members? I think that the key piece from my standpoint is to build upon the work that has previously been done by township staff, identify any knowledge gaps. Obviously the Women Committee are not, heritage experts per se, but we would look that you have a critical eye within a heritage perspective for seeking, perceived gaps within those statements, identifying whether you have the resources available through the Wellington County Archives or the Historical Society to seek out information. In the absence of that, to address those questions so that the heritage consultant can rethink it over, type of thing. So I think I just wanted to be somewhat clear, because I think in 2023, maybe my experience was I wasn't sure what I was supposed to do or what I wasn't supposed to do. So I think for us, it's that critical second set of eyes. Was the big thing. Okay. Question, Lauren?
Well, would it be possible to have maybe a workshop where someone that knows this is an idea of what they do? And the terms golf, whatever. Also, the Ontario House.
I'll ask town staff. That's a good question. Any thoughts? I'm not sure if there's any resources available within the larger municipal world of your peer group that may be able to point us in the right direction.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we are attending a session tomorrow for learning about the heritage statements. And I know that our CAO had asked the committee if there was interest, and I know Tamsin is going, but I think that's all we heard.
I think it's not us to it. It's not what?
It's in Aurora.
What do you think?
Let me see.
While you're looking that up, I maybe would a small request would be is if you can share any observations or lessons learned from that session. I think it would be the absolute benefit of the committee to hear.
Full
from you.
disclosure, I didn't check to see who was on the email chain and it was attending with me, so I actually assumed that most of you would be attending. I know that there's 5 people attending. So, and I'm one of them. I assumed that there would be multiple. So I will absolutely discharge the responsibility and write everything I possibly can. Follow your way.
Yeah, check in.
Great, Mr. Chair, a member of staff will also be in attendance, so staff can work with, Tamsin in writing committee memo, with respect to what's going through this process. With respect to, additional resources, for completing research, around specific terminology, staff can certainly reach out and see if we can, see if another municipalities. And staff are also working at, the Pacific Society and some of the other resources we also can use for the community to ask those questions.
I think those are all great ideas. So maybe just to kind of wrap up some of these actions, I think we'll ask staff to further examine opportunities that Justina articulated for the meeting in Aurora and between committee members that are going to attend and staff, that they generate a report to some degree. To develop. My only maybe request would be if that gets circulated prior to a next meeting, which is scheduled for May, just becomes a time lag to maybe getting work done and getting a report for knowledge reasons. I think that would be my request. Anything else? And I guess offline after the meeting, we'll identify if there's an opportunity for any other team ago. I'm not sure if the registration, oh, we're not solving that right now. So I'll leave that for after the meeting to.
I think, the one thing I'm looking for, in direction is how in-depth are these reports should be. Because, we could spend an hour or 50 hours.
Mhm.
And so I would like to have some sense of scale, how in-depth, how much information is required, how into the nitty-gritty are we getting, or is it, we need sort of a basic overview to identify these 5 things. I think I would appreciate.
Mhm.
more, detail on this.
Something that I think would be of value is if we can share our time spent with the Passaic Historical Society is with someone that has a vast knowledge of their records, so we're not left searching through files and files and files trying to confirm the information that's already there and or gaining information. Because I have already gone in and I've experienced how long this process can take. So if we can have someone that helps fast track that, streamline that, they're expert in. That would be amazing. I don't know.
Is there ever an opportunity for the homeowner to participate in this process? Like, we take this away and go, but, I was talking to somebody recently, they were looking into their area on Gore, and they had done all the research on the heritage of their home. So is there a way to invite homeowners who may be, anticipating this designation or want this designation to offer what they already know?
Mhm.
And
Through you, Mr. Chair, when we do the site visits, we can certainly try to have the homeowners there and then go over what the attributes are. Kind of, we have the draft statements already. So I think there could be an opportunity to even take those draft statements when we do the site visits and then have the homeowner be like, yep, no, and what they think based on that. I think there's an opportunity for that. We will be sending out those site visit letters this week in hopes to do the site visits on kind of end of March, beginning of April. But we can absolutely bring those draft bylaws to the site visits and then go over them with the property owners if they're present. Justina.
Mr. Chair, this is not included in this report, but staff have also identified, holding a open house for these identified property owners, which they will be invited to, and it's staff's intention to have these statements available at that time to all visitors. So there will be on-site visits as well as a open house.
Right, and I think the open house that was done last summer, and I think provided a lot of good clarity to those property owners interested in the process. So I'd encourage staff doing that again. Maybe my one request would be is just for committee members as an FYI. Not that the community needs to get involved in this, but I think just as members within the community that are on the Heritage Committee, if staff could just give like a brief note via email that the 2024 Heritage properties that have been selected will be communicated with by township. Just I think we don't need to get involved in that, but I think it would be helpful just for us to understand the steps in the process and that this is when it's an intended open house would take place, because I think I would encourage everybody to attend that open house. I went to the one in 2023, and I think it was even beneficial for me just in terms of learning the process. So I think my request would be just more communication with the committee is good. It's easy to.
We do have a tentative date for the open house. It's April the 11th.
Okay.
we'll do the same format as the last one.
Mr. Chair, a slightly different format, because this will be targeted specifically at the properties who are priority properties for this year. The previous open house was kind of a general open house about the designation process in general, so there will be components of that. But this will be sent directly to the properties that have been identified rather than that more general format. This will also be promoted, so we mail directly to the priority property owners. The committee of force and council will be notified of the open house. Will be posted on the township's website. We'll have a banner as well as a notice and on township social media. So we'll follow our typical, engagement opportunities.
It's great. I think we're communicating with the public on this. Yeah, I would just, from a committee standpoint, let us know what's up. I think making sure we get those dates in our calendar and stuff. All that kind of good stuff. That we can on with that. Okay. Anything else from any committee members, just in terms of the report that Laura has presented, 2024-008? I think we've got a couple, actions coming out of that. I think we're doing positive. Okay. Hearing no further amendments, Laura, can I have you read the resolution?
That report HER 2024-008 Heritage Designation Update for 2023 and 2024 properties be received for information. And then Frack can take away the other.
Seconder? Any dissenters? Right, carried. All right, now to our next report, which is HER 2024-009. Designated properties delisted from the Heritage Register as of January 1, 2024. And I'll turn it over to Laura to provide us a brief update and overview of that report. Laura.
Through you, Mr. Chair, this report came out of direction from the January meeting for staff to look into designating a property after it's delisted from the Heritage Register. And we kind of looked into the act, and section 27 and then subsection 16 and 18 kind of give wording for that. So any non-designated property will be delisted for that 5-year period as of January 1, 2025. And it will not have any interim protection from demolition or zoning bylaw amendments, things like that. But it doesn't mean there's still an opportunity to go through the designation process for these properties after January 1, 2025. They're just delisted. They can still be designated, but we can't help them if there is a prescribed event or if a demo permit comes through, is kind of what staff were able to find through our research.
So. if the
Questions?
general permit comes through, they're not flagged? No? That was kind of a process I thought maybe would be given to these. No.
Very Mr. Chair, so when a property is listed as non-designated under section 27, it has that protection. So if a demolition permit was come in when it's non-designated but listed, then there would be an opportunity. When it has been removed and is no longer, then those interim protections no longer exist.
But
We can still go through the designation process.
Designated.
Correct.
Are important properties, absolutely.
I wonder if we need to update the other bylaws, I guess, because they're not designated, so they're not automatically notified as update the Heritage Committee, but they have kind of an interim status that if council makes a decision on it, hopefully these are kind of interest, because otherwise we wouldn't even know to start designating, so council has to make that call.
leave it to township staff to provide comment before I do.
Great, Mr. Chair. So is the question around if an event has not taken place and the ability to, bring a property forward?
But my concern is that an event comes up, council is notified of the demolition permit or the county was. But we're gonna miss that communication to the Heritage Committee to notice that something's going up and need to.
Is this within respect to a listed property? Or
Currently listed, but after 2025, it will be listed. So if
So,
those homeowners now think we can get the demolition going, where does it normally go? And then somehow know that we need to know.
So through you, Mr. Chair, the interim protection is lost. So at the point that staff become aware of a demolition permit, that process is occurring and there is not an opportunity to intervene. So under the legislation, the opportunity to have legal protection is section 27. And so because these properties were listed, they lose that protection for a period of 5 years. So it would be a change to the Ontario Interpretation Act rather than any regulatory backlog.
Okay, but they are of interest to the public. So you're saying that there's no catch for them at all? But there must be something we can do to at least alert people that might be interested in it.
What you have to do is continue doing what we have been doing for the past 2 years and, few months, but we will continue doing what we're doing. And hope that we cover
Mhm.
the most important properties in our community that have cultural and heritage values.
My question, I think what I hear you asking is there any, can we object or recommend an objection to council? So that there's some voice somewhere that says, we think this demolition permit is a terrible idea. Even though they're not protected, is there any way for that, for this committee to have a voice in the process?
Through you, Mr. Chair, and now with respect to the demolition permit, that's a building permit process. And that's not, that's just, it's just a permitting process, it's not an internal process, so there's no comments from, we don't bring building permits to council. I don't believe that it's permitted under the legislation, I have nothing from that. With respect to planning act applications, staff could certainly, given that this list will still exist historically, staff could certainly, look at if a property had been previously listed. With that being said, I'm not sure if that would have any merit on, comments with respect to the planning application from a planning perspective. As it would not have protection under this legislation, but that's certainly a process that can be recommended to council for consideration going forward. But again, with the demolition permits, that's not a process that council.
So maybe what would be helpful, and I realize we've got some time, right, between now and in January 1 of 2025, and it would be, my request would be that township staff can work through a scenario and provide an example. So here's where I'm thinking is, okay. ABC property that's currently on the designated list does not go through the full heritage designation. Therefore, effective January 1, 2025, it comes on. The 2nd of January, that property owner applies for demolition permit. Understanding what processes currently exist within the power of the township to halt that demolition. As I'm hearing it, and again, I don't want to put you in the spot, just something or just to go on a really technical question, and then expect to be like 100% accurate. But I think for this committee and council, it would be beneficial to understand if that scenario plays out, and I think we're all sensitive to a situation like that playing out, what policy or bureaucratic processes exist to halt a demolition permit if that site comes off the list. And if there are none, then that's a very different conversation. But if there are, let's just be aware of what they are, whether they float through this committee or through council. So maybe my request would be for our main meeting, if we could seek a report from township staff articulating that. Maybe I'm dreaming.
Mr. Chair, with respect to building permits, the only items that can hold a building permit is if it doesn't meet applicable law. And so if and I'll allow it to be more than just not in the process.
So that it's listed on the agenda, just the conservation, source water, and if you do actually properties that are not to the bypass. Has it been if the account isn't an issue, then the application is accepted. It then moves on to zoning. And then the application is. It's hard to clarify, that is for new building permits, or building permits, demolition permits, and building permits. So both. Yeah. So we can both. For the most part, actually demolition. If it is much. Review. Because it's already exists. That's one of the applicable law, but it actually applies to that demolition. Because. It Research does not, does not post any open building permits or requests on any public website. So only in the agendas, I believe, for the planning committee, they're not. They see it. Building permits. Is knowledge and should be posted on the building permit website or demolition is approved.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Other prescribed events other than the demolition permit, like our zoning bylaw, if it was a zoning bylaw amendment or if it was related to a planning act application, those would be posted onto our township's website under the active planning and development applications page. Any like official planning act amendments, any zoning bylaw act amendments.
I think once they're approved, they go off. They're not there for a long time. So.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So setting aside, building and demolition permit applications, with respect to the thought of, is there a potential process for flagging or considering, properties that have been owned from the terms of a prescribed event? The committee could consider making a recommendation to council to ask staff to, look into if there's any kind of policy or procedure that could be put in place for some kind of consideration as part of the consultation. With respect to prescribed events, so with respect to demolition, council and committees are not able to get involved in that process. But with respect to prescribed events, there may be an opportunity for staff to explore some kind of.
Great suggestion. Is it reasonable for us to, as a committee, recommend staff kind of carve something for them to have a. There could be a bylaw at some point that we could. Is that the process you take?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm not sure what kind of, what is that? What kind of decisions are required to action for. With the staff's recommendation, if your recommendation to council, the council will decide if they would like to have staff put resources into it.
Does that make sense to everybody? Like, because I think it addresses, our collective concern of what happens to these properties that don't go through the designation. We don't want them to just fall off the radar. I think this is important from the community standpoint. So have staff kind of go back and review what a process may look like. And I like the idea of pushing that through the appropriate processes. I think time is on its side from the green listing. It's not like this is going to happen tomorrow. So I think it allows, we've got council meetings, we've got further committee meetings. Yeah, I think that's good. Do you have enough to have a resolution for this, Laura? I guess I'll maybe stop here. Based on what Justine articulated, does that make sense for committee members, or do we have any bills based on the recommendation? Okay. What do you got?
Let me know if this makes sense, Justine. That report HER 2024-009 entitled Designating Properties Delisted from the Heritage Register on Jan 1, 2025 be received for information. And that staff report to council on a policy regarding prescribed events for the delisted properties to be considered during the pre-consultation process.
And that,
Okay, I knew you would have it.
and that the Heritage Advisory Committee recommends that, council consider
Yes.
the,
Prescribed event
review of a policy or procedure for the structure of such events for the listed properties and designating for this company.
The council consider the review of a policy or procedure.
That can be considered development.
The council considers the development of a policy or procedure with respect to delisting properties as of January 1, 2025. So, and that the Heritage Advisory Committee recommend that council consider the development of a policy or procedure with respect to delisted properties,
With respect to the property,
prescribed events of, on deal. That the Heritage Advisory Committee recommend that council consider the development of a policy or procedure with respect to prescribed events on delisted properties as of Jan 1, 2025. Want me to say the whole thing
Yeah,
again?
Let's just walk through the whole piece.
Okay, so the whole resolution would be that report ATR 2024-009 entitled Designating Properties Delisted from Heritage Register on January 1st, 2025 be received for information. And that the Heritage Advisory Committee recommends that council consider the development of a policy or procedure with respect to prescribed events on delisted properties as of January 1st, 2025.
That's good. Yeah. Can we have a mover? Seconded? Need dissenters? Right, carried. Thank you. I think that's a good outcome of the discussion. All right, we'll move to item 8.3. HER report 2024-010, the 2022-2026 goals and objectives update. Lauren, what do you again?
Yeah, the purpose of this report is to go over the committee's goals and objectives. We've kind of touched on the Heritage Register one in the previous report, and we'll discuss the engagement piece in a following memo. If there's any other questions or additions, we can take those.
Any comments or questions on HER report HER 2024?
Mhm.
I'm on the committee.
Run to ourselves, I know.
No, I'm just wondering, if you have local indigenous people participating in training next week.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the statement has been completed by an external consultant. That work is kind of done, and now they will be also assisting us in putting together the land acknowledgement open house. But also this engagement subcommittee will be assisting in that part as well, but they're assisting in the whole process, yes.
Do we have any, this is gonna take place, or is that still to be?
Through you, Mr. Chair, June of this year.
Other questions from committee members on the work plan? If not, I have one. Is just, we had previously discussed around the properties that would be captured up in this delisting process, and I would like to add or recommend that we add to the goals and objectives that a staff put together a list of the remaining sites in a designated list that we can capture and spot up in our I'll call it priority listing 1 for 2023, priority listing 2 for 2024. So it's really the gap site. That staff put that together and that we develop a probably 2 subcommittees over the course of 2024 to review those properties that are tapped towards, and I'll call them the version 2 gaps. And if there are properties that, based on the recommendation of the subcommittee, that we want to continue moving forward with on the designation process, that those be our 2025 priorities. Which are probably going to be a combination of homeowners' willingness to go through the process, as well as significant heritage attributes within the community. So our goal is twofold. The first is, once 2024 ends, that these properties just don't fall off the list and never to be heard from again. They're on the list for a reason. And then the second piece is that I think we've had really good progress for heritage designations in 2023 and into 2024. And, you know, this current cycle for the committee, 2022 to 2026, that we don't just have the first half of the cycle. Let's focus on heritage designations and then stop, because I think we've made good progress here. The only thing else we would look for is to make sure that into the future we have appropriate budget allocations, not for today's conversation, but for council to be aware of, that this goal transitions into the future. And so I'll be an advocate for making sure that we have appropriate funding to achieve this, you know, at the council level moving forward. So does that make sense from a staff perspective? Any comments from committee members on that recommendation?
Let's talk about this, the plots, these houses, and I was going to mention this in the last report conversation. If house is going to be modified, what happens with the plots and or delisting the plots? I don't know that you have any sort of control on what to do with these plots, because they've been to the historical society, right? But I do have questions about the plots. And I think educating the public on their importance, continuing to educate new residents of things that they need to figure out their neighbors know how important their house next to them. But the question would be,
Yes, maybe if I can sum that up for staff, I kind of took three points out of that. So I think the first one is, what is the process in place for the plaques? And if township staff can discuss that now, great. If not, we can bring that up at the next meeting with after an internal discussion. But I think the other piece in my mind is, you know, the education process around showcasing designated properties within the township. And I think Laura's got some stuff later on in the agenda that discusses that. But I think the third piece in my mind is, once we get through the 2023 cohort of designations, I'm curious if we can have a conversation around how as a municipality we can acknowledge those 2023 and not just be like, oh, that process is done and over and done. Like these should be, or hopefully, proud property and there's the time and effort into this. How do we best showcase that? Whether, you know, and presumably they would be presented with a plaque and documentation, and I want to get into, you know, designing like at 901 somebody does this, and 902 a picture gets taken and all that type of stuff. But just the fact that there should be an acknowledgement process, whether that's from the committee or staff or a combination of the both. So maybe just something to think about, and maybe ask the township staff just to contemplate that, because I think those are really, really good points. So maybe
For the message, I think there's a few opportunities for us, especially with respect to the 1% subcommittee. So I know that think Graham is going to speak to this, later, but, so we do have our, heritage register map and our online, digital archive, so I think there'll be opportunities to update that with designated properties. I think something that, may be consideration of the engagement subcommittee would be if there would be some kind of campaign to reach out to any designated, unlisted properties to see if they still want to participate in that. So we have kind of multiple ways that properties are shown. So you have properties that are not listed, but are some historical value. You have your designated properties. So I think there's a few ways that we thought about of reaching out and how we want to maintain that historical information knowledge. With respect to, properties that are being designated, the committee may look to put thought towards budget in 2025 with respect to upgraded plaques. So that there are plaques for designated properties versus properties that just are specific to have historical value have been historically plaques that may not be designated. I think there are some considerations there. I think with some correction, from the committee, we can look at that. I think it's important to note that, this committee's budget meeting actually will also be the main meeting, staff will send a reminder about that. But that may be a good opportunity and a good place for that kind of public is with that engagement subcommittee.
I like that. So just make a point of, we'll have an engagement subcommittee meeting, at least one or probably two, prior to the main meeting, so that we can review our work plan. Discuss some budget implications. That makes sense from like, I guess I'm thinking that's probably gonna be the two of us at some point. But for township staff, I guess I'm more concerned with the syncing of the process so that we come to the main meeting ready to make a decision, I guess is where I'm getting at. Okay. And so,
All this fall, all of the people objectives that we have to then, like,
So here's what I would consider a, deviation of engagement. That means that there will have to be a, proposal sent to council with the budget ask. The staff will assist in looking.
I look at it as like the evolution of the process. The one other question that came out, just to kind of follow up, and I don't want to put you in an awkward spot, Justine, but like, I'm just thinking, the sites that have plaques that were designated, they come off the list. What do we do with these plaques?
Because what I was kind of thinking with, is there some way to, acknowledge that they still have that cultural and historical value, even if they aren't? And maybe that's where we have the differentiation in plaques. As an opportunity, I think that'd be a great thing for staff and the engagement subcommittee to discuss and maybe come back to the committee with. And I think in terms of maybe how we can kind of shape that on the website and looking for people to, give us permission to include that would be great work if we're suggesting that if someone's doing it on the committee, and I think the idea is coming from our engagement subcommittee to be recommended to the committee. That would be,
I like that. Lots of work to do on that engagement subcommittee. Okay. Anything else from committee members that you'd like to identify or share, or thoughts? I think we've got a few. Are you ready to jump into this? We had a few additions. So
Yes, we have the new goal and objective. Okay, I can read the resolution.
before now.
That's staff report APR-2024-010 entitled 2022 to 2026 goals and objectives update be received for information. And that the committee add the 2025 priority properties as a goal and objective, and that staff bring a report to the next Heritage Advisory Committee meeting regarding the remaining non-designated properties for the committee's consideration. We can kind of take a peek at all of those remainder ones.
Do we want to add in the development of some committees to review that, or is that going to come over that meeting?
We can, we can we can create the subcommittees in the report that we will write for the May meeting. We'll have in the resolution, the creation of the subcommittees.
Any comments on the resolution? All right, looking for a mover. Seconder, Andy. Any dissenters? All right, carried. All right, good stuff. Okay. Now we're into item 8.4, committee memo 2024-001, engagement subcommittee. I'll maybe turn it over to Laura to just walk us through the.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. So this memo kind of goes over the current goals that the engagement subcommittee has put together. So the first one is that work with helping with the land acknowledgement open house, which will be in June of this year. And then the second one is highlighting how we can showcase the current 2023 designated properties. And one of the ways will be through the Heritage Register map. And then I think what we touched on earlier in this meeting, another way that we can showcase will be potentially through another sort of plaque, will be another way to highlight those properties. And then the third goal for the subcommittee is to promote the Doors of Puss Lunch poster, kind of through our social media, website advertising, those ways. And I know we had talked about if we wanted to go over the map, I can do that.
Is it incredibly
No,
public to do it up in the city?
No.
Okay, so maybe if you can, Laura, I think Laura walked me through this a couple of weeks ago, and I was quite happy with what this looked like in the sense of designating the properties with a map, a little bit of background around it. I'll just share my longer term goals to work more on the tourism aspect or the public engagement aspect around, I guess I live in Conception 4. I see tons of cyclists out there in the weekends, all that type of stuff. Why can't we have a cycling map of like historical properties the same way you would have a culinary tour, stuff like that? I think. Go ahead. So I think there's more to come with this, but I think it's a great snapshot of the work that's been done to date.
yeah. So right now this can be found on our Engage Puss Lunch platform, and then as well as just through our the heritage page on the township's website. And it kind of goes through just the Puss Lunch heritage, and then has this interactive heritage register map. So currently on this map is all 109 priority properties. That will change as of January 1, 2025 to include only the designated properties. Is that right, Justine?
So it was something properties that opted into.
Oh. They had to opt into this. So it's not all 109. They had to say they wanted. Okay, got it. Thank you. Oh my gosh. Okay, well, I was really thinking it was all 109. Okay, so it only has the people who opted into it of the priority properties. It will look the same, but it will change in the sense of come January 1, it will only have the ones that were designated for this for 2023 and 2024. And then on each of them, you can kind of see, so this one, so you can click on it and then you can see the ones that are highlighted there. And then it also gives a short description as well as a photo. And then it also links to the township's digital archive as well, which has even more information on it. This will evolve with the designation process, but is definitely still a tool that we can use to engage with the public, I think.
Questions for Laura?
Is there opportunity to continue outreach to get more properties on or a secondary? I don't know, like, I feel like saying the properties that are not listed any longer and then they just disappear. I think a very important part of our community is its history. So is there a way that we can have a map, like Russell said, for bikers, that maybe the version 1 plaque maps versus version 2?
Are you, through Mr. Chair, are you like the ones that will be delisted?
To get people on to these concepts. Yeah.
But I think for Mr. Chair, I think that's, that is kind of that concept of having those two ideas. I think it would be very important to have people opt in to be included on the map. Especially as, we have heard, concerns from property owners, when they are included on either listed or, designated of having people attend or enter their property without their permission. Which is why it's very important to have their, permission to have them included. And we've also made it very clear, on the, wording for the one not to enter the properties. So yes, like short answer, I think that it's a great initiative to be reaching out and seeking more people to participate. But we'll just have to do this.
Different colored tags
Mhm.
with different types of designations.
Absolutely, it has that capability in terms of having different colors or different icons.
Great suggestions. And I think I share your concerns, Justine, with, posting information publicly and then whatever, unfortunate consequences sometimes happen with doing that. So I think I'm very supportive of making sure that the property owners have full acknowledgement and information, they need to be okay with that being posted, especially in the township and city. Liability standpoint, so full support of making sure that process is in place, but I think like our larger goal is, can we showcase this? And this is a fantastic opportunity, so I guess, more to come from you on this one, Laura. I'm looking forward to seeing how this evolves, and then even just engaging with the larger, town of Wellington, with other communities. Who are doing this type of stuff. Yeah. Great stuff. Yeah, and so we added a plaque aspect to the work plan. Is there anything else that we discussed that we want to just maybe call in?
I don't think so.
Any other comments for Laura? Okay, if not, I'll ask you to read the resolution.
That report MEMO 2024-001 entitled Engagement Subcommittee be received for information.
Good. Andy? Good. You're all getting in the meeting minutes today. Okay, any dissenters? Okay, carried. All right, we're to the end of it. Correspondence. I don't believe we've had any correspondence. Is that correct, Laura?
Mr. Chair, that's correct.
That one. Announcements. Do we have any announcements from committee members that you would like to flag for your peers? Do we have any from township staff? Okay. Any notice of motion? Is today's conversation? I don't believe there is. Great. Any new business that anybody would like to flag or discuss? Okay, hearing none. Last opportunity. All right, can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Yeah, that the Heritage Advisory Committee hereby adjourns at 2 p.m. Right on the dot.
All right, 2 p.m. Here we go. Carried. All right, thanks, folks. That was good. We covered a lot of stuff in an hour.